You know, sometimes I still wake up in a cold sweat, staring at the ceiling of my new apartment, and the first thought that hits me is, did I actually live there? It sounds crazy, I know, but I swear on everything I hold dear, the house I grew up in, the one my parents sold a year ago, wasn't just some quaint, four-bedroom colonial. It was, and I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, a covert operations training base. A secret lair, hidden in plain sight, right there in suburban America. But that's not even the most unbelievable part. The true gut punch, the thing that still has me questioning reality, is who they trained there. The names I found on those hidden files, they weren't random soldiers. They were people I knew. Was I completely oblivious, or were my parents involved in something so deep, so twisted, that it puts every spy movie you've ever watched to shame? Before I dive into this whole unbelievable mess, I need you to tell me, if your childhood home turned out to be a staging ground for government secrets, and the people trained there were your high school friends, what would you do? Would you go to the police, or would you start digging? The story starts innocently enough, just a year ago, when my parents decided to downsize. My dad had retired, and my mom was finally getting her garden. So they sold the old place, the one with the massive, unfinished basement, and moved to a condo. I was helping them clear out the last of the junk. You know, old photo albums, my forgotten baseball trophies, the usual emotional clutter. The house had always felt a little odd. It was bigger than it looked, for one thing, and the basement. It was enormous, but the far corner was always blocked off by a flimsy sheetrock wall my dad claimed was just where the foundation was tricky. He hated when we messed with it, always citing some vague structural danger. The buyers were a young couple, very polite, who seemed oddly unconcerned with the state of the property, which should have been my first red flag. It was the last day, and I was feeling nostalgic, leaning against that sheetrock wall in the basement, just soaking up the silence of an empty house. My elbow slipped, and instead of hitting a solid surface, it went right through. Not a clean break, but the wall sort of shifted, like a cheap set piece. Curiosity, that little nagging voice that gets you into all the worst trouble, took over. I tore a larger hole in the cheap plaster, and there it was. A metal handle, disguised perfectly within the drywall texture. My hands were shaking, but I pulled the handle. The whole section of the wall, about 5 feet wide, swung inward with a soft, mechanical hiss, revealing a second, hidden staircase going down into pitch blackness. I didn't call my parents. I didn't call anyone. I just grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and descended. The air was colder down there, stale, and smelled faintly of ozone and old metal. The stairs led to a massive, underground room, easily the size of a triple-car garage, reinforced with concrete and soundproofing I could only imagine the cost of. It wasn't just a storage room, it was a ghost of a high-tech facility. There were racks of server equipment that had clearly been wiped clean and decommissioned, heavy-duty floor anchors where machinery must have stood, and, this is where it gets crazy, a wall-sized map of the city that had been hastily ripped down, leaving shadowy adhesive outlines. But the real find was a small, recessed safe in the wall behind what must have been a control panel. It was a digital lock, and I fumbled with numbers, trying everything. My birthday, my parents' anniversary, the year we moved in. Nothing worked. As I was about to give up, my gaze fell on a faint, almost invisible etching on the concrete floor, the number. I typed it in. The small green light flashed, and the heavy door asterisk clunked asterisk open. Inside, there were no jewels or stacks of cash. Just 3 things: a stack of hard copy personnel files, a couple of heavy-duty, encrypted USB drives, and a detailed, laminated floor plan of the entire secret sublevel. I didn't look at the files there. I was terrified the new owners would show up early. I stuffed everything into my backpack, sealed the wall section back up, and walked out of my childhood home for the last time, a literal vault of secrets slung over my shoulder. Back at my place, I started going through the files. The hard copy files were detailed resumes and mission reports, but all the names were redacted. They used code names like Viper, Spectre, and Maverick. The mission reports were chillingly vague. Phrases like asset acquisition successful, target extraction confirmed, and deep cover established. It was clear this wasn't some local amateur operation. This was professional, highly funded, and utterly terrifying. Then I moved to the USB drives. They were locked down like Fort Knox. I spent weeks trying to crack the encryption, running advanced software, and pulling all-nighters, finally getting a breakthrough with a brute force attack that took almost 72 hours. When the files opened, my blood ran cold. One folder was labeled Trainee Manifest, Cycle 19-21. I opened it, and the list of names wasn't code names. They were full, unredacted, real names, and I recognized them, all of them. There was Sarah Jenkins, who sat 2 rows ahead of me in calculus. There was Mark Olson, the star quarterback of our high school football team. And there was Emily Chen, who I'd had a massive, embarrassing crush on for 2 years. They weren't just names from my past. They were the kids I went to prom with, the kids I shared pizza and bad jokes with. They were covert operators, trained right beneath my feet in my house. My mind was reeling. What did they do? Who were they working for? And, most pressingly, were they still out there doing? Whatever they did. I started cross-referencing their names with public records, and they all had these perfect, airtight lives. Mark was a stockbroker in New York. Sarah was a successful corporate lawyer in Seattle. And Emily was an NGO worker abroad. The perfect covers, obviously. The files confirmed they were part of a deep cover initiative, a domestic training program that used suburban homes to blend in and train assets for specialized, high-stakes, domestic, and international espionage. My parents' house was the classroom. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My whole life was a lie. All those times Mark came over to study, was he scouting the perimeter when Emily was helping my mom with the garden? Was she actually testing the sound, dampening capabilities of the walls? I started digging into my parents' past, finding gaps in their employment history that were previously explained away as unstable job markets, or a brief period of consultancy. Suddenly, those gaps looked like mission deployments. I didn't know if they were trainers, handlers, or just oblivious landlords coerced into renting out their basement, but they were *involved*. I felt sick, betrayed, and completely alone with this unbelievable secret. This wasn't just my story anymore. It was a story about the fabric of reality being shredded by secrets in the heart of my quiet neighborhood. I had the files, I had the names, and I had the undeniable proof. So that's the situation I was in. I had this nuclear-level secret, and the key players were people I shared classes with, people who lived seemingly normal lives. I could have gone to the authorities, but who would believe me? And what if the authorities were the very organization running this operation? The second option was to confront one of them, to find out the truth from the inside, a terrifying prospect that put me in direct danger. Before I tell you what happened next, what I chose to do, and the confrontation that followed, I want you to pause the video right here. Go down to the comments and tell me honestly, if you were me, holding the evidence that your old friends were highly trained spies and your parents were possibly complicit, what would you have done? In my shoes, would you have gone public, or would you have risked everything to get the rest of the story? Okay, so after agonizing for weeks, I decided I couldn't go to the police, not yet. I needed more leverage, more understanding. I decided to contact Emily Chen. She was the most level-headed person I knew back then, and I figured if anyone could be reasoned with, it was her. Finding her was easy, her NGO work was public. The tricky part was making contact without setting off every alarm she undoubtedly had. I didn't call or email. I sent a cryptic message through a secure, anonymous email address, using a phrase only she and I would remember from a stupid inside joke in high school. But I attached a small, grainy photo of floor plan I'd found in the safe. I signed off with my code name, the quiet neighbor. The response was immediate and terrifying. A few hours later, I got a one-word reply from a completely different, untraceable address. Cafe, Tuesday, noon. I went to the meeting place armed with nothing but the truth. The USB drive hidden in my shoe. She was sitting there, looking exactly the same, but different, sharper, more intense, even in her civilian clothes. Her eyes scanned the cafe constantly. I walked up, and she didn't smile, just fixed me with a gaze that felt like a drill bit. "You shouldn't have done that," she said, her voice low and utterly devoid of the warmth I remembered. I sat down and slid a napkin across the table. On it, I had written Mark Olson, Sarah Jenkins, Viper, Spectre. She picked it up, read it, and her composure finally cracked. Just a flicker of fear and shock in her eyes before it was replaced by icy determination. "What do you want?" she asked. I told her I wanted the truth about my house, my parents, and what they had done to our lives. I held up the USB drive. "I have everything, Emily. The mission reports, the training manifest. You can't deny it." She sighed, leaning back, looking defeated but still dangerous. She confessed everything. She, Mark, and Sarah were part of an experimental program that recruited high-achieving, easily overlooked teens from stable suburban environments, training them to be invisible, loyal assets. My house was chosen for its perfect geographical isolation and its owners. Passivity, that's what she called my dad. And my parents, that's where the real twist was. They weren't trainers, they weren't agents. They were victims, but not in the way I thought. My dad, years ago, had accidentally stumbled upon a financial irregularity in his consulting job that pointed straight to a major, covert funding stream for this organization. They didn't kill him, they made a deal. Silence, compliance, and the rental of their entire sublevel in exchange for their safety and a generous monthly stipend, passed off as an investment dividend. They were just scared, normal people trying to protect their family. My father had built that flimsy wall to protect us from the truth and the organization, not to hide the Operation * them. They lived every day in fear, knowing a Black Ops base was beneath our feet. My heart broke for them. Emily revealed the organization's name, the Aethelred Group, a shadowy, non-government entity with deep ties to various national intelligence agencies operating in the moral gray zone. She was meeting me because they had begun to suspect the basement had been compromised and were preparing to clean house, which meant silencing everyone involved. My message had alerted her just in time. She was here to warn me, and she admitted, to try and get the files back. But she realized I was too far in. Instead of fighting, she offered me an ultimatum and a lifeline. Give her the hard, copy files, keep the encrypted USB for my protection, and she would use her contacts to get me and my parents off the group's internal radar. It was a massive risk, trusting a spy, but she was the only path out. I agreed. I traded the hard copies for a single piece of information, a secure burner phone and an emergency code to contact her if anything went wrong. She stood up, her face a mask of regret. "I'm sorry about your childhood," she whispered, and then she was gone, melting into the crowd. The aftermath was a slow, agonizing process of rebuilding trust with my parents. When I told them I knew, they just cried. They confessed everything: the fear, the isolation, the feeling of being trapped. We sold the USB drive's contents anonymized and encrypted again to a reputable investigative journalist in Europe, ensuring the information was out there, too big to be contained by the Aethelred Group, giving us a measure of protection. My parents sold the house, a huge relief, and moved into their condo, finally free. Emily is still out there, living her double life, but she has honored her word. We haven't spoken since that day, but the secure burner phone hasn't rung. I've completely changed my life, moved cities, and am trying to piece together a new normal. I'm always looking over my shoulder, but I'm alive. This whole mess taught me that the biggest secrets aren't in ancient tombs or remote jungles. They're right under your nose, in the most boring suburbs. You can never truly know the people around you, or even your own family, and the price of safety can be your entire sense of reality. My old home was a covert ops base, and the spies were my high school friends. It's a ridiculous, terrifying, and deeply sad truth I have to live with now. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my impossible story. Like this video if you were on my side and think I made the right call in trusting Emily. Subscribe for more stories like this, because I have a feeling the Aethelred Group isn't quite done with me yet. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. What should I do with the emergency code? I'll see you all in the next story.